All right, so welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today, we are going to be exploring a pretty fascinating corner of Buddhist philosophy, and that is the concept of the 108 sins of the Bodhisattva. And we're going to be looking at excerpts from Empty and Annihilated, 108 Sins of the Bodhisattva, to try and understand what this all means.
Yes.
Now, before we jump in, just a quick reminder, a Bodhisattva is someone on the path to enlightenment, but with a twist. They've actually vowed to help all real beings achieve the same.
Exactly.
And this adds a whole other dimension to the idea of sin, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's so intriguing about this text is that it really kind of turns our typical assumptions about sin on their head. Because, it's not really about kind of those outward actions, the stealing or the lying, the things that we might typically think of. It's about something much more subtle. It's about this inner world of a bodhisattva, their thoughts, their perceptions, their sensations, all of that.
So it's like, instead of a list of commandments, it's more like a guide to what's going on inside, right? Like what's happening in our own minds.
Exactly. Exactly. And the text really dives deep into how our six senses, and remember that includes the mind, how those six senses can actually be the breeding ground for these 108 sins.
Okay, so let's, this is fascinating. So what does the text actually say about this?
Well, there's just one line that really stood out to me. It says, if a bodhisattva has thoughts in his mind which arise in the void and disappear in the void, he has 108 sins, which cannot be seen when his mind arises and disappears.
Wow.
So it's really highlighting this idea that these sins come from this place of nothingness. They exist, and then they go back to nothingness.
So the sin isn't necessarily the thought itself popping up, but it's more like what we do with it.
Yeah, you're getting it. You're getting it. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine your mind is a river, okay? Constantly flowing. And each thought, each feeling is like a ripple on the surface of that river. The sin comes from clinging to those ripples. Getting caught up in those little, eddies and whirlpools, instead of seeing the river as a whole.
Okay, so I can definitely, that makes a lot of sense. I think we've all had that experience where one little worry pops up and then it just it just takes over.
And that's where this concept of emptiness comes in.
Now, emptiness, when you say that, it sounds a little scary, right? Like everything just sort of disappears. But I have a feeling it means something different here.
You're right to be cautious with that word. Think of it maybe like this. Imagine this vast open sky. Okay? It's not that there's nothing there, but it's full of potential, right? There's space for clouds to come, for birds to fly, for, the sun and the moon, whatever it may be. And then those things dissolve back into that open sky. And that's kind of like emptiness in Buddhism, Recognizing that there's this space, this potential from which everything kind of emerges and then returns to.
So it's not about emptying our minds completely.
Right. Which is
pretty much impossible.
Yeah, it sounds impossible, but it's more about changing how we relate to what's already there.
It's about recognizing that everything, even our thoughts and feelings, they're impermanent. They arise, they exist for a time, and then they fade away. The key is to see that process without getting so hooked by it.
So how do we actually do that? I mean, because the text talks about listening to the teachings, reflecting on them, and then putting them into practice.
Right.
What does that actually look like,
in our day-to-day lives?
It starts with just simply noticing. Becoming aware of those ripples in the mind, those thoughts, those feelings as they arise. Not judging them, not trying to push them away, just observing them.
So there's that phrase that comes up a lot in the text, returning to extinction.
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about here?
That's a great way to put it, It's like recognizing a thought as it comes up, right? Watching it without getting swept away and then letting it naturally dissolve back into that state of emptiness, that open sky.
And this isn't like a one-time fix, right? I mean, this sounds like an ongoing practice.
Oh, absolutely. The text calls it this continuous practice of non-abandonment. It's this commitment to just staying present with our inner experience, moment to moment, without giving up.
That makes sense. But here's something I'm kind of wrestling with. The text also talks a lot about the Bodhisattva's vow.
Right.
to help all beings achieve enlightenment.
Exactly.
But isn't that kind of contradictory?
Okay.
How can you be focused on your own kind of purification while also being engaged with the world, trying to help everyone else?
It's a great question, and it's one that the text actually addresses directly.
Okay.
It says, if you have the original vow to go to the Buddhas of the 10 directions, why would you sit in meditation and abandon your sins? If you were to sit in meditation and abandon your sins, your original vow would be extinguished.
So becoming a hermit and meditating all day long is
not quite the answer.
Yeah,
it's not about retreating from the world. It's about finding a way to integrate your practice and your purpose.
So it's not either. It's both hand.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But then if you're a bodhisattva and you're so focused on helping others, how do you avoid getting kind of tangled up in all that suffering in the world? I mean, wouldn't that be a distraction?
Well, the text kind of suggests that, inevitably bodhisattvas are going to feel this immense compassion and sorrow for those who are suffering. But those very emotions, if we cling to them, become another manifestation of these 108 sins.
Oh, wow. So even caring about the suffering of the world too much can be...
It can be. It can be, You've hit the nail on the head. The text reminds us that even those seemingly positive emotions can become a source of attachment if we're not careful.
So how do you prevent that?
Well, the text points to this balance between compassion and equanimity.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that even these positive emotions are arising and passing, just like any other experience. It's not about shutting down your compassion. It's about understanding its nature.
So you can have a heart full of compassion, but also a mind that's clear and calm, and not getting swept away.
Yeah, that's it. It's a delicate balance, but a crucial one.
This reminds me of something else the text talks about, which is this idea of and this kind of blew me away, the 5408 loves.
Yes.
The Buddha describes how each of our 6 senses can create 5408 loving actions.
Yes.
Which are really, attachments or desires.
Right.
And each one of those can lead to rebirth.
It's such a powerful, isn't it? Yeah. Powerful image.
Yeah, it's like, so every time you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or even think something, there are 5408
potential hooks.
Potential hooks for
attachment.
Attachment. Wow. Yeah. No wonder it's so easy to get caught.
To get caught up. It really drives home the point that sin in this context arises from clinging to these experiences. Yeah. No matter how pleasant they might seem on the surface.
Yeah, so it's a powerful reminder to really pay attention to what's happening on the inside.
Yes, to cultivate that awareness.
Exactly.
Yeah. It makes the path of a bodhisattva all the more challenging, but also, I think, all the more inspiring.
Yeah, and speaking of inspiring, the text then goes on to talk about the difference between the Buddha's wisdom as a bodhisattva compared to his wisdom after achieving enlightenment.
It's a striking contrast. He describes his previous understanding before becoming a Buddha as like a small stream compared to the vast ocean of wisdom that he attained after becoming a Buddha.
Wow, that's quite an upgrade. So, but what does that say about the potential for growth and understanding on this path? I mean, if even a bodhisattva has that much room to grow, what does that mean for the rest of us?
That's a great question. And it suggests that the potential for growth is limitless.
Yeah.
Think about it. Even a bodhisattva, someone who has dedicated their life to cultivating wisdom and compassion, still had so much more to discover. It's a journey, of
continuous learning and evolution.
Right.
And the text gives us some clues about how to navigate that journey.
Okay.
It specifically mentions, forbearance and humiliation as essential practices.
Okay, now those don't exactly sound like fun activities.
No, not necessarily, but they're powerful tools for cultivating a balanced mind.
Okay.
Remember we were talking earlier about, the challenge of kind of how do you maintain compassion without getting swept away by all the suffering in the world.
Right. Finding that sweet spot between caring deeply, but not letting it
exactly. Forbearance and humiliation kind of help us to build that resilience, that inner strength.
Yeah.
The text says, when a bodhisattva's mind is moved, he should endure the 108 things and not let them change. This is to endure the mind and practice the precepts.
So it's not about being numb to suffering.
No.
It's not about being indifferent.
Right.
But it's more like learning to be present with it.
Without losing yourself.
Without losing your sanity.
In the process, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. The text is guiding us towards this state of equanimity, you know, that balanced mind that can weather the storms of life without getting blown completely off course.
Okay, I can see how all this fits together.
Yeah.
But doesn't this all sound a little passive?
Okay.
Like if you're just enduring things, how are you actually making a difference?
It's not about passivity at all. Yeah. It's more about finding a way to act from a place of wisdom and compassion rather than reacting out of fear or anger or attachment.
So it's about choosing your response, even when things are difficult.
Think of it like this.
Yeah.
You know, a bodhisattva who has cultivated this forbearance and humiliation can be like a steady rock in a raging river, you know?
Yeah.
They're not swept away by the currents, but they offer a place for others to rest.
Right.
To find their footing.
Yeah, that's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
So it's not about fixing everything. It's not about single-handedly saving the world.
Right.
It's more about being that source of stability, of wisdom in the midst of all the chaos.
Exactly. And that's where I think the true power of a bodhisattva lies.
Okay.
They can offer genuine support and guidance without, you know, getting caught up in all the drama, without adding to the suffering themselves.
Like they're embodying the teachings, not just talking about them.
Absolutely. And the text really reinforces this. It urges bodhisattvas to actually bear witness to the suffering of others.
Okay.
It says, bodhisattvas should understand that all people in the 10 directions are attached to greed. Attachment is all ignorance. Bodhisattvas should always help others to understand their attachment and ignorance. Bodhisattvas should also treat their greed and ignorance as their own.
That's really powerful. Yeah, it's like it's recognizing that we're not so different from those who are suffering.
We all have the potential.
Yeah, we all have the potential to...
For that greed, for that ignorance, for getting caught up in those 108...
And the text even uses the word stupidity.
It does, yeah.
To talk about.
To describe that state of ignorance.
That state of ignorance.
Yeah, reminding us that it's something we need to, you know, actively work to overcome, both in ourselves and in others.
But it's not about judging people.
No.
It's more like an invitation.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity.
Yeah.
You know, acknowledging our own flaws.
Yeah.
And extending compassion to those who are still struggling.
And that's where the Bodhisattva's vow comes in.
Yes.
That commitment to helping others find their way out of that suffering.
The text makes it clear that true compassion is not passive.
Right.
It requires action.
Yeah.
A willingness to engage with the world and offer guidance and support.
And that vow isn't a one-time thing.
No, it's
ongoing.
It's an ongoing practice.
Yeah.
It's a constant thread running through every thought, word, and deed. It's about remembering that interconnectedness, recognizing that the liberation of one being is ultimately the liberation of all.
It's like this guiding principle that helps you remember why you're doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Even when things get tough.
The text describes this commitment as a path of diligence.
Okay.
It says, when a bodhisattva has something in mind, he should do his best to follow it. When he has exhausted all his thoughts and eliminated the 108, this is the path to entering the path.
So it's about bringing that mindfulness and intention to everything you do.
Yes, and the text suggests this path isn't always easy.
Right.
You know, the Buddha acknowledges that there will be challenges and setbacks and even failures.
Well, that makes it feel a lot more human, a lot more relatable.
Right.
Yeah. It's good to know
it is.
that even the Buddha recognized that there are struggles.
It's a reminder that we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to stumble, we're going to make mistakes. But the key is to keep getting back up, to keep practicing, to keep refining our understanding and our actions.
It's like those stumbles are actually opportunities to learn and grow.
Absolutely.
They're reminders to return to the teachings.
Yes.
To recommit to our vows.
The text goes even further, and it kind of explores how our senses themselves can be, you know, like a gateway to greater understanding, or a trap that keeps us stuck in that cycle of suffering.
Yeah, we were talking about those 5 and 408 loving actions earlier.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming to think about
a lot
how each of our senses can create all these potential attachments.
Right.
But it's also this powerful reminder to pay attention to how we're experiencing the world through our senses.
So it's not about denying our senses, but it's about understanding how they work.
Exactly.
And how they can
sometimes lead us astray. Yeah, the practice is to kind of observe those sensations.
Yeah, with mindfulness, allowing them to come and go.
Right.
Without getting caught in the trap of, craving or aversion.
It's like appreciating the beauty of a flower without feeling the need to possess it.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And the text suggests that, this understanding of our senses is an essential part of this path to enlightenment.
And that path, as we've seen, is this journey of continuous learning and growth. And we've got that incredible passage where the Buddha compares his wisdom as a bodhisattva to his wisdom after achieving enlightenment.
It's such a striking image.
Yeah.
He describes his previous understanding as this, small stream compared to this vast ocean.
It's amazing to think that even with all that wisdom and compassion that a bodhisattva cultivates, there's still so much more to discover. It really highlights that limitless potential.
Yeah.
It's not about reaching some fixed endpoint.
Right.
It's about constantly evolving, deepening our understanding, and expanding our capacity for wisdom and compassion.
That makes it both exciting and kind of daunting at the same time.
It does.
But it's also incredibly inspiring.
It is.
Yeah, it means that no matter where we are on the path, there's always more to learn, more to experience, more to grow into.
And that brings us to another really important point that the text emphasizes. And that's this idea of self-reflection and humility.
It seems like those two would go hand in hand.
Oh, absolutely.
Self-reflection and humility.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get caught up, I would think, in the idea of, I'm on the Bodhisattva path.
Right.
And maybe start to feel a little superior to those who haven't quite reached that level yet.
You've hit on a key point. The text is very clear about the dangers of what we might call spiritual arrogance.
Okay.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking, we've got it all figured out.
Right.
Especially when we're working with these, profound teachings.
Yeah.
But the truth is, we're all on this journey.
Right.
There's always more to learn.
So how do we cultivate that humility?
Well, I think
it's more than just saying, I'm so humble.
Right, yeah. It's about being honest with ourselves, acknowledging our own shortcomings, and recognizing that,
Right, we're not perfect.
We're not perfect. And the text puts it quite bluntly.
Okay.
It says, a bodhisattva who does not fail in his practice should always feel ashamed.
Wow. That's pretty strong.
That's a strong statement.
But it's not about, wallowing in guilt.
No, it's not about, it's about recognizing that we're still learning.
Okay.
We're still growing.
Yeah.
It's about staying open to those new insights, even if they challenge our current understanding. Right. It's about remembering that even our best efforts, are still just a drop in the ocean.
Right, so stay grounded.
Stay grounded.
Don't let the ego...
Don't let that ego inflate too much.
Get too inflated.
Exactly.
Okay, so it seems like everything we've been talking about, the 188 sins, the concept of emptiness, the Bodhisattva's vow, the importance of self-reflection, it's all pointing towards this idea of letting go of our attachments.
Yeah.
But doesn't that sound a little...
It can sound a little bleak.
Bleak, like are we just supposed to detach from everything we care about?
It's not about becoming indifferent or cold-hearted.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that true freedom comes from loosening the grip of all of our desires, our fears, our need to control.
Okay.
It's about learning to appreciate the beauty of impermanence.
Right.
Finding joy in that flow of experience without getting fixated.
Yeah, without getting fixated on any one thing. So it's not denying those feelings.
Right.
It's not pretending you don't care, but it's understanding that they're like
waves.
Waves. They're going to come and go.
Exactly.
And you don't have to drown in them.
You got it. And the text gives us tools and practices to help us navigate those waves.
Yeah.
To find that sense of peace and equanimity, even amidst all the storms of life.
Yeah. We can still love deeply, care deeply.
Absolutely.
But without that clinging, possessive quality that causes so much suffering.
That's it. It's about finding a way to love and care without losing ourselves in the process.
That's a really beautiful idea.
Yeah.
It makes me think about all the ways we try to find happiness and fulfillment.
Right.
Possessions, relationships, achievements.
Yeah.
And so often, those things end up causing more stress.
More stress than anything else.
The text
is inviting us to consider a different path.
Yeah.
one that leads to true and lasting happiness.
Okay.
And it's not through acquiring more things,
Right.
but through understanding the nature of our own minds.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into empty and annihilated 108 sins of the Bodhisattva,
Okay.
what are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners will walk away with?
Well, I hope they'll remember that, these 108 sins aren't like a list of rules to follow or a reason to feel guilty.
Right.
But it's really more a reflection of
Yeah.
the many ways that we create suffering for ourselves and others.
It's like a roadmap of our own minds.
Exactly.
Showing us where we tend to get stuck.
Exactly.
And the text offers us a way out.
It does.
Offers us a path.
It offers us a path,
That starts with
that begins with recognizing
impermanence.
the impermanence of all things,
Including
our thoughts and emotions.
our thoughts and emotions. Yeah, it's a path of self-awareness.
Yes.
Cultivating compassion and wisdom.
Yes.
Learning to let go.
Learning to let go.
Without losing our heart.
And most importantly, it's a path that's open to everyone.
That's a great point. Yeah.
No matter where you are on your journey.
Yeah, no matter how many times you stumble,
Exactly.
that potential is always there.
Always there.
That's really inspiring.
The journey might not always be easy.
Yeah.
But the rewards are immeasurable.
Well said. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back soon with another fascinating exploration into the world of ideas.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, keep learning, keep growing,
Yes.
and keep those 108 sins in mind.
Absolutely.